into the learn and earn session we're going to have today. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to learn and we're going to find out ways that we can be more profitable and enjoy what we're doing better. So throughout the day, Ken and I will expect a lot of interaction from you. We'll probably ask you some questions as we're going through the day. To start out with this morning, I meant to do this when we had our manure session, but I'd like to have Doug Rowley come up here today. Come up here, Doug.
All right.
Hi. Doug is, you know, a professional manure applicator, so he won the Shit Haulers Award for the year. So this guy knows his shit. So we appreciate everything that Doug does for the industry. And Doug, I want to award you with this shit hauling.
I do have a degree in shitology.
Okay. So thank you for all your support.
Wow.
Okay.
That is awesome.
Okay.
Now I'll wrestle my wife for it.
That's right.
Thanks.
I should mention Doug is just a guy who really is interested in promoting good manure management and helping his profession, as well as just being a good human being. And we appreciate Doug and everything he does. What we're going to do today, we're on session 3. This is going to be on the crop side and introducing you to the Crop Advantage Plus program and everything that goes into that. And I hope when you leave here today, you're going to have greater knowledge of how you can individually develop a very specific plan for your operation beyond what you've ever done before that'll take you to where you want to go. And Ken and our organization have put a lot of effort and work into this, a lot of man hours of what's going to be shown to you here today. And my job is to set the stage for Ken this morning. And so what we're going to learn really how to do is I really think that the most important asset we have in agriculture is our soil. And how do we take our soil and improve it so that we can have better output of quality grains or whatever forages that we're going to produce that are more healthy for us and for our livestock. And so we're going to kind of focus on that today, how we leverage that. And yesterday I sent out an article, The Future of Farming is More About Bushels Than Acres, and it talks about, as a farmer, really what we need to do is invest in the technology that's going to get us more per acre, rather than trying to farm the whole county and be stressed out about it and probably take on more than a lot of times we should. But how do we take what we have and farm where we get more out? We call that farming vertically, or just realizing more out of every acre and doing it economically. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do we balance your soil nutrients and biology to improve yield, quality, and reduce input costs at the same time. So when we talk about a lot of the technology, Ken and I, we're really not asking you to spend more money, we're just asking you maybe to spend it a little different way, and how we can increase efficiency. It gives us the opportunity to do that. And with that, we want to show you what, when, and how much plant nutrients you need to apply on your own fields and crops to achieve higher economic yield and quality. So a very specific plan of how you can do that. And then just how do you improve the overall efficiency of your cropping program or your system? And I always talk about we need to start with an end in mind. You know, what are we trying to achieve? We need to visualize that so we can achieve that. We got to dream of where we want to go. And then if we do it right, we're going to have reduction in all the different things we fight all the time, the weeds, the insects, and the diseases. They're here because nature's put them in place to take care of problems. And so when things are out of balance, insects are nature's garbage collector. And diseases only move in when your soil or your environment is not healthy and it lacks oxygen. And when you have competitive exclusion and you have the good guys there, which 95% of the microbes are, then they crowd out the bad guys. They actually produce materials that are not conducive for those pathogens to exist. And And we'll talk a little bit about the GMO, non-GMO area. And again, we're not telling you what to do. We work with conventional farmers that farm with GMO and Roundup. We work with biological farmers. We work with organic farmers. It's really your decision on how you want to farm. I feel our job is to enlighten you on some of the issues that we face in these different categories. And then how to learn, how to use, and what the secrets are to the Crop Advantage program. So that's what we want to accomplish today. And to understand what we do as a company or what our mission is, it's really to provide food producers like us with knowledge and value-added products and technology to implement renewable farming systems. And what that means is we should be able to implement a program where we are getting more for less. And so much of the agriculture industry today is built around the more theory. We have the attitude if we want to have higher yields, we've got to put more of this on. And that's not necessarily true. Oftentimes less is better because we put too much on. We throw things out of balance and we create a toxic situation. Manure is a good example of that. Why we don't want to apply raw manure because of high salt problems, as an example. We want to bio-augment. And the result of this implementation, it's going to restore balance. And we use that word balance a lot throughout our program. And we'll talk about balance is all about minerals and microbes today, but in getting biologically active soils that are diverse to produce high energy, nutritionally balanced food necessary for healthy livestock and healthy people. So that's really the key. And as I've matured in my profession, it really comes down to being as simple as that, and it's really unbelievable. I spent 8 years in college, and it comes down to minerals and microbes, okay? But they never taught me those basic principles. They worked all the way around it and never got to that point. I actually got my PhD out of Michigan State in weed science, and never did one professor ever tell me why weeds were in the field. Because your soils are either toxic or they're nutritionally out of balance. And the Creator put all these things here for a reason, and they have a function. And so if you balance your soils nutritionally and biologically and build organic matter, your weed pressures are going to go down. Your insect pressures are going to go down. Your disease pressures are going to go down. Only when you're out of balance is when you have that occurring. And so we work very strongly on faith. I believe things were put together over millions of years for a purpose. And they went through a lot of evolution to get here. And who are we to say that we know better? But when you think about how we operate in agriculture, we go out, the average farmer in Iowa, they go out and they fill on their MAP and their potassium chloride and their anhydrous in the fall, and they think, okay, I got my job done, and they walk away, not knowing that what they just probably did was sold things out of balance. And probably a lot of what they've done is tied up and not available. And so what Ken and I want to do, the natural processes are the key to the whole thing. So you really got to understand natural law to really understand that how to get nutrients available to the plant is in the natural cycling of nutrients, and that the biology is involved in that. And only when you connect those two things can you really understand how to improve nutritionally the crop you raise. And of course we try to be grounded in science. So what our real passion is reaching people for health and improved productivity in what we do. So nutrition rules in every aspect of our life. Whether we realize it or not, it's all about really nutrition and the elements that we've been giving to eat and to live on that are either in the soil or come from the air. And it drives every aspect of our farming operation in our life. And so the one thing that I've understood is that, I take mineral 75 every morning very religiously, because I know that if I keep the mineral base and diversity up in my body, that I'm going to be healthy and I'm not going to get the flu, I'm not going to get a cold, my energy is going to stay up. And knock on wood, there's been a lot of disease and cold go around this winter since November. The only time I was a little sick in the last 4 months is we went to Cancun. And we went downtown and I ate some stuff that gave me a little acid reflux, but other than that, I've been healthy. And I really go back to the fact that how I'm not drinking pop, you know, I watch the sugar I take into my body. I'm trying to eat nutritionally balanced food. I don't eat fast food unless I absolutely have to if I'm on the road. And I religiously take my Mineral 75, my probiotic. So, you know, the same thing that applies to our crops and to our livestock or animals applies to us too, and we must realize that. Eating these little microbes, and Ken will tell you, this is one of these little critters that live in the soil. Isn't he cute? And there's a gal in Canada out at the University of Guelph, and she's taking pictures of all these little critters that are below ground. And then this is just one of them. I thought he was one of the cuter ones. How'd you like to meet that one in a dark alley? Huh? And what Ken will tell you and what we've learned is that they need to be fed just like everything else that's living. And when you increase the trace mineral elements in the soil, man, they turn on and they're fixing nitrogen, they're solubilizing phosphorus for you, they're attacking diseases and the pathogens that shouldn't be there. So these guys need nutrition just like we do. And what Ken and I have found is that we've mined a lot of our soil out of all these elements that we normally don't think about. Molly's one of them, and Ken will talk about that today, but it goes far beyond that. There's, how many elements are there in the periodic chart, Ken?
119 so far. We know a lot about the first 112. Most of them are radioactive past 90, so you don't want to mess with those.
But you could probably say 50 or 80 of them impact this one way or another, right?
Probably closer to 80.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, this is rather alarming, and I don't know, Micah, maybe if you turn off the next, or whoever knows how to turn the lights off down along the side there, Peter will get it. You can maybe see these slides a little better. This is rather alarming to me, the fact that my great-great-grandparents ate better than we do today. You look at this here, this is 1914. And this is a sum of the average calcium, mag, iron in cabbage, lettuce, tomatoes, and spinach up to 1997. So look what happened to our mineral content. So if it's all about minerals in our diet, we're not getting it in the food we're producing for the most part. And not only does it relate to health, but it all goes back to mental alertness. It goes back to discipline in our schools. Everything in life hinges back to nutrition. So if we really want to fight violence and disorder, you've got to feed this. There was a study done in Wisconsin. Did everybody remember that study? Where they went into this Wisconsin school, they pulled out all the candy and all the junk food, and they put the kids on a balanced diet and juices, and these kids, in a matter of 2 to 3 months, turned around, and their behavior was completely different. And they were learning better. And we often don't think about the fact that what we put in our mouth and how I digest it has that major impact on it. This is something too, when we look at, we know we got some beef producers here in the room, but when you look at from 1963 to 1992, percent change in all these different nutrients in our beef. Look at vitamin A. 100% reduction in vitamin A. When we look at iron, look at calcium. So we're eating this stuff, and not only if it's not raised in a natural way, who knows what's involved in it. Yes, Chad?
Vitamin A is low on beef and the chicken, huge amounts. Any particular reason why that is so much more reduced than the others on the vitamin A?
On the vitamin A? Well, I'm going to ask Ken. Ken, can you comment on why vitamin A may be low on both the chicken and the beef?
Well, your vitamins are produced from your mineral and your enzyme activity. And so what happens is these animals or plants try to make these processes or try to make these compounds through the different pathways, if the nutrients, especially the trace elements, aren't there to activate the enzymes, your vitamins don't get made. And when you look at the pecking order that operates enzymes that makes all these components, your vitamins are all secondary because an active trace element has to be with an enzyme to create the vitamin. So you can go back and see various shortages, but you can trace your vitamin A, your vitamin E, all your different types of water and fat soluble vitamin deficiencies to an enzymatic system that's not functioning because of a lack of a trace element.
See, about 99.5% of the elements that are on your soap test are the structural elements. But all these others are the functional elements. They're the ones that are the key that turn on your new tractor, new truck, or combine. And so what Ken is saying, if you're missing one of those key trace elements, you don't turn on the enzyme to make vitamin A, as an example. Okay? This is the part that everybody misses in human health and in agriculture. We're all focused on NPK. It goes far beyond that. There's again a reason why all this stuff is here. We have to realize that it all has a very important role, again, when you look at the nutrition in the chicken. You know, I'm just kind of leery now of eating out, and I've gone to good steakhouses, and after, of course, we raise our own grass-fed beef in Buffalo, and we buy range chickens. The meat that you buy out now just doesn't have any flavor anymore. I was to the pork show down in Des Moines here 2 weeks ago, and we went for lunch to get a sirloin sandwich or a pulled pork, and it was like eating cardboard. There was no flavor in it. And we got a whole population of people today that think that this is normal, and it's abnormal. But they don't know any better because they've never tasted good quality food. And the only way you get good quality food is through mineralization. And if you want to control your weight, eat nutrient-dense food, because you eat a certain portion, your body says, I'm satisfied, and you're fine. But if you don't eat nutrient-dense food, and half an hour later you eat, your body says, I'm still hungry, so you eat more, and you just keep getting all the carbs in your body. Okay? And so eating nutritionally is very important. Same thing with animals. If you feed a dairy cow nutrient-dense corn and alfalfa, you know, we talked about this yesterday, 8 to 10 brick versus maybe a 16 brick. I mean, milk production is going to go up 20% in 2 days. Right, Ken? Yeah. You've seen it happen, right?
I've done it over and over and over.
And so, you know, if you're a dairy farmer, is that important to you? I think so. Probably. The cows are going to be healthier. And so the real question is today's farming system functional and self-sustaining? Well, it depends on who you talk to. If the farmer today, the trouble with the corn soybean farmer today in the Midwest is we're not paid for quality, so it's just quantity. And it ends up in the food chain, and there's consequences to that. And we talked about this yesterday, and how many here saw this yesterday? Raise your hand. Okay, about half the group. Okay, so I'm going to go through it again, and Ken can chime in here a little bit too, if you want to. But this is a study that we did here. In fact, Marlo's farm. Marlo's in the back there. He did it. And I don't know. You know, you can talk to Marlo about this if you want to. But the point being is, it goes back to how we're farming today and where it's leading. And I really believe, and one of the goals that I see as a company we want to do is we want to educate the consumer. I think we're all obligated to do this. So by going through the Learn session today, hopefully you can take the message out to your family, to your friends, to your associates about food quality and nutrition. Because we all have a vested interest in this. So, but the general public and the farmers need to be educated because they're not getting this through the land grant system. And so much of what we're doing in agriculture today is driven by the almighty dollar. It's not what's best for all of us. And so as we look at this has been in a non-GMO, non-Roundup program for 5 years. This over here has been in a GMO Roundup for, let's say, 10 to 12 years. Both of them were pioneer varieties. They were basically side by side, the fence row kind of in between. And so as we start looking at the difference between these two, and these were analyzed by a company in a food grade lab, independent study. The grower here got paid 70 cents a premium on this corn because they wanted it for its food quality value. And one of the things we're going to be seeing as we move forward, and I tried to relate this to the company I talked to over in Michigan last week, Herbers. And they're a big chicken producer over there. They got 6 million laying hens, a really nice one, family operation. 1 million of the birds are organic. And so I talked to 100 of their organic growers because what I found out is a chicken will go through about a bushel of corn a year and about a half a bushel of soybeans a year. And so to feed those 1 million birds, they need about 1 million bushel of organic corn. And so they got all these producers in the area that are raising organic farm corn, and they're buying it from them, so they want to make sure they get the quantity. They're focused on quantity, they're not focused on quality, and I try to make that point. Organic doesn't mean that it's nutritional. All it means is I passed all these benchmarks to not using these certain things to raise this crop, but it doesn't mean it's more nutritious. And so, but on their other side, they're feeding GMO grains. And I said, okay, you're selling to McDonald's. What's going to happen in 3 or 4 years when the consumer wakes up and is educated and says, I don't want anything to do with GMO in my food chain at all. And McDonald's comes to you and says, guess what? We can't buy your eggs anymore if you're feeding GMO grains and you're using Roundup, because it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I said, you need to be thinking about that right now. You need to be a value-added supplier. You say you are, on your trucks it says, it's all about, your eggs are all about nutrition and taste. It's right on their semis. I said, and their manure guy admitted to me, they sampled their manure and they found a half a part per million of glyphosate in the chicken manure. Well, do you think that glyphosate is in that chicken too? Do you think might some of that be in that egg? I don't know. What do you think? And so, what we're going to see, I think, is a whole revolution in the industry around this, because look at our population today with diabetes and weight issues and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, all this stuff, all these abnormalities are led by the lack of proper nutrition. Right, Ken?
And the introduction of toxins so that we don't deal with it.
Right. And whenever you have toxicity in the system, you can't reach true nutritional balance. True health. You've got to get rid of the toxins. We learned that when we started managing a lot of manure. One pit or lagoon would behave just like we thought, right, Doug? You go over here and treat this other one the same way, and, well, why isn't that behaving properly? And then you start digging into it. DDGs, GMO grains, glyphosate, antibiotics, disinfectants are going in there. And we found high part per million of glyphosate in manure. And glyphosate is a chelating agent. What did I just say? Microbes need nutrients, right? And it's also a biocide. And so, why are we seeing all these issues and problems that we're dealing with today? And this is in our best interest, in our family's interest, in our grandchildren's interest, to understand these concepts. It's pretty simple. It's about minerals and microbes. That's the foundation and part of the whole thing. So as we start looking at if nutrition is important and energy, then this is herbs energy release per gram second, 100 versus over 300,000. So which is anything that eats that going to do better? You start looking at phosphorus, 3 parts per million versus 44. Potassium, 7 versus 113. Calcium, 14 versus over 6,000 parts per million. Which one do you think your livestock is going to do better? And Ken could come up here and I tell you, he could talk all day on just what we're going over now and telling you functionally what each one of these does and the impact of this versus that. And so when we start looking at what else is in that grain, when we look at the GMO, we got anaerobic biology, 60 parts per million, chemical content, 60 parts per million, of course 0 over here, chloride content, 60, formaldehyde, 200, and glyphosate, 13. Now, I will ask Ken to comment a little bit. Marla?
A couple things there. On his previous slide, you think about feeding. I do have a niche market in the Amish. And they will tell you, if they have to go to the elevator, they're milking goats, by the way. Their milk goes, goats for goat cheese and tomato over here in Rochester. That's their market. But they'll tell you those milking goats will drop out of production in 3 days if they run out of my corn, and then they have to go, they just about can't eat the corn from the elevator. They also raise those black chickens for the Mungs in Rochester. Now the family that we started with, those black chickens will hit market in 7 to 8 weeks. They're gone. You have to remember, it doesn't matter if it's his brother-in-law or his brother down, they do everything the same. It doesn't matter if he's a half a mile away or a mile away. It's always the same. And those black chickens, they're taking 9 weeks to 10 weeks to get to market. So on a meat bird, which is probably an 8-9 week thing normal, GMO, they're the full 9 to 10 weeks. Non-GMO, he's 7 to 8 weeks. So that just shows you the feed value out of it. And probably the biggest single thing that they see in, because we do some other things down there also, is the slide that was just up there will be your fluoride. You realize as farmers, when you go to the undertaker, he's going to give you a discount because you already have a whole bunch of that formaldehyde in you, okay? And so make sure you get your discount. All your ides, doesn't matter if it's chloride that you see up there or your fluoride, it doesn't matter. All the ides are poison. So figure out if you're killing bugs with it. Now you understand the little better problem.
Yeah, let's pick out one there. Let's talk about formaldehyde real quick. What is the consequence of that level of formaldehyde in our feed?
Well, the EPA will tell you that at 0.3 or 1/3 of 1 part per million, it's a carcinogenic, and it has to be labeled. This is at somewhere around 650 times that number. So the problem is what happened through the genetic modification that made this plant accumulate these chlorides and these formaldehyde. And when you go back to the insertion of a gene, you're taking a gene from another organism that runs at a completely different software programming, and you stick it into this organism, and it doesn't function the same. And so what we're seeing here are these giant red flags that says in a plant that should normally process this out, it's not processing out. And so the gene insertion is stopping part of the pathways that form all of these products. And as you look at this, formaldehyde is coming from the nitrogen. The nitrogen comes in and the plant is going to take it, the aromatic amino acids, they're going to take it through a process of forming the amino acids into the proteins. Well, in this process, it's getting shoveled over to another pathway, and the plant is accumulating the formaldehyde. Now, in a normal plant, the C1 metabolism, which plants and animals both have, will take the formaldehyde and take it into CO2 and water. But obviously, that pathway is shut off in this plant, so it's accumulating these toxins. And at this level, the formaldehyde is an incredible biocide. They involve us because there's going to be no microbial activity to decompose us. Can you imagine what the deterioration of your gut is going to look like with this? And that's why you see these animal intestines and their stomachs coming apart. One is, the good biology is gone, the glyphosate's killing it, the chlorides are killing it, the formaldehyde.
We got the anaerobic biology producing all this stuff.
And see, what happens is your glyphosate is very toxic to your beneficial microbes, but it's very stimulating to your pathogenic anaerobes. And so your pathogens take off, you lose your good guys, there goes your digestion process, and then you have all of these toxins tearing apart your tissues that absorb the nutrients. So in your turkeys and your chickens, you have this cellulitis.
And by the way, this handout should be in your packet that you picked up. If you didn't get a packet, anybody who did not have a packet? Okay, Peter, would you get some crop packets? Raise your hands up. You guys need a packet here? Okay, well, we need 2 up here and a couple here. Yeah.
Jim, if you don't think that that's happening next fall, when you're a corn, go out in your cornfield. You got to go out in the cornfield, find yourself a ear and milk. Bust that thing open and put it to your nose. I'll guarantee you can smell formaldehyde in your GMO.
Yeah.
Now, the consequence of this, and we've got some information over there, an article on Don Hubert over there by the Herbalife sign, and then one on nutrition and healing about GMO foods and human health you maybe want to pick up. And then there's a video on YouTube I talked about yesterday, genetic roulette. Write that down, genetic roulette, and go on YouTube and you can watch that. And that'll lay out things in detail. But we're talking about infertility in the human population. We're talking about a lot of things that we're facing right now as a society that's not going in the right direction. Yeah.
When you look at your last one, your glyphosate content of 13 parts per million, you have to realize that the FDA allows 20 parts per million of glyphosate in any of our food. And at the level of toxicity,
they need the organic one too, the green one.
1/2 of 1 part per million will disrupt every endocrine system. It only takes less than 5 parts per million to start to destroy embryos. And that's in chickens, that's in hogs, it's in cattle, it's in humans. And when you get up into the 8 and 10 range of parts per million, it's with all of your autistic children, it's with your Alzheimer's, it's with your Parkinson's, it's with all of your digestive diseases. So it doesn't take much of these neurotoxins and these chemical compounds to really disrupt our endocrine and our reproductive and our respiratory and our circulatory and our digestive systems.
Did you guys find, do we have that handout in there? In your packet? Okay, it's in there, so you have it. And not only that, but this corn, well, we'll talk about that, the difference here. But here's a study that was done down in northwest Iowa where they fed a group of pigs, comparative study, non-GMO versus GMO. And just like Ken said, when you start running this through the animal, it's very, it irritates the intestinal tract. The animal becomes very edgy. It's noticeable. And, you know, is Rick, where are you at, Rick? Is Rick in here? He works with Sarah Lee down there in northwest Iowa in their turkey barns. They'll put 20,000 in a barn, and it's not uncommon for them to lose about 2,000 or more birds per turn. And if you don't get them picked up, he says, in a day, when you grab them, they just fall apart. And I said, what's Sarah Lee's attitude about this? All they want to do is have so much pounds a week, every month, every year. It's about pounds of meat. They don't care how they get it. You know, if they got to have another house of birds to get those pounds, that's what they do. So that's just the way it is. We know that wildlife knows better than we do. And this was Hosletter down in Illinois. He had 2 genetic corns that were the same. One was GMO and one was non-GMO. And he picked them in the fall, put them in his office. His secretary cleaned up his office in December, put them out in the warehouse, and Margie said, where's my corn? I need it. She says, I put it in the warehouse. He went out there, and guess what? They didn't like this corn, but they really liked that corn. And I've seen that all over and over again. And this, in fact, we said yesterday in this very building, we've got enough space. This has got a basement. We have 2.5 acres under roof here. But we can put about 100 loads of seed downstairs. So we've got areas where we have organic and areas where we have GMO. And 2 years ago, we had a load of oats come in. And I didn't know there was mice in it, and they put it down in October down in the basement. About February, they all started multiplying. And they went over in that organic grain, and they just tore those pallets apart. We'd go down there, and before we could get them under control, and we'd clean the organic pallet up, you know, nice and neat, and clean up all the grain. Go down there the next day, and there it is again, all tore apart. And over in the GMO, no problem at all. They wouldn't even touch it. So there's something about wildlife, and Ken, you were saying that dairy cows can sense with their nose the formaldehyde, is that right?
They smell it. And, you know, Marlo and I were on the phone with Dr. Huber about this, and these animals are very sensitive to these formaldehyde odors. Just like Marlo said, you go out there and get a deer that's in milk stage and take a good hard whiff of it, and you can smell this. Well, the animals have, sometimes their sense of smell is 100 times greater than ours, so they'll pick this up and they won't have to eat it to figure out that they don't want it.
Okay, over here on the GMO side, it's on the back of the handout. You are going to have probably more disease, medical costs, reproductive problems, and gain, loss of profit, higher death loss, increased feed consumption, lower conversion, lower quality manure, mineral deficient food, and just higher cost, lower profit. Now, on over here, you're going to have the opposite. So, you have a choice as a grower what you want to do. You're in control. If you want to stay with GMO and Roundup, we can help you. We're going to make sure your ground is mineralized, your crop is mineralized. You're going to use Herbalite in the micro mix when you spray your glyphosate. We're going to work on your biology on the seed at planting time. We're going to put cattle water out there and bio-release to help knock down the residues. Cattle water will take glyphosate residue right out. And in Marlo, how long does glyphosate, they say, stay in the soil?
Half-life glyphosate is 21 to 24 years.
Okay, so if I'm a grower, you know, over here on the left side that's been using it for the last 12 years, think about the glyphosate base that I've got in my soil. And it's really important, if you're going to go to conventional corn, you better probably plant GMO Roundup for a year at least and then dissipate that glyphosate before you go to a non-GMO. And I think a lot of the problems we see in cereal crops, like on wheat and oats, is when they have been using glyphosate and then rotate into one of those crops and they wonder why their wheat's not doing very well. And again, these residual levels can be very devastating. But you know, when you look at the bushel, the quality factor here and the payment that we receive there for better test weight, and that's all driven by mineralization. And the food grade quality, you know, we're up another 240 to 280 bushel dollars an acre. So I mean, if we're in the business to make a profit, you know, that goes a long ways. So the thing we must understand is that the soil must be kept in good health if the animal is to remain in good health. The same is true of man. Soil science is the foundation of protective medicine, the medicine of tomorrow. I talked to a lot of people about our full circle system, and I said, okay, if you were me and I wanted to focus on these big dairies and these operations, would you go after the probiotic feed additive, or would you go after water revitalization and manure? Where do you see they need the most help? And invariably what they'll say is you need to deal with their soil. They need to learn how to produce better quality feed, either in grain or forage. And that's where they really need the help. Let medicine be your food and food be your medicine. And that is so true. And you know what I've learned, and I've said this several times to you, but I keep repeating it because it's been so impacted on me in how I approach things now. It's not what we don't know that's a problem, it's what we know that ain't so. And as a population, we are indoctrinated every day with a message that people want us to get ingrained up here. Usually something that they want us to reform to or respond to. And If I go talk to a Pioneer dealer about what we just went through here right now, the wall goes up right away, and you can tell very quickly, this is not, you're getting into my space and I don't even want to go there, so let's not have a good conversation. Okay? And you just back off. Because they have been so ingrained to think the way they do, and it's a constant message from Pioneer and Monsanto and the land-grant universities too. They're the ones that should be putting this message out that's not doing it. And the other thing is we must understand is you must understand the natural laws, because that's what we operate in. We can't go around it. Think about over the years of your experience in agriculture with using pesticides. How long does a pesticide usually have viability before the insect or a weed becomes resistant to it? 5 to 7 years normally, right? You know, you can look at Curadan, you can look at Sutan, you can look at Pursuit, you can look at all these products that were here. There's probably, I don't know how many there's registered in Washington, probably over 40,000 different products that aren't used today because nature learned how to go around it. And nature's role is to keep things healthy and balanced. That's the #1 priority of what's in the soil, all those livestock that's below the ground, is to take care of toxicity and to maintain balance. That's their job. And everything they do, all their energy is focused on doing that. So you're better off if you understand that and you help them and you work with them. So what determines the integrity of a building, Lynn? The foundation, that's right. And if you build a building with a poor foundation, you're always on quicksand. You can never get it to where you want to be. You got cracked walls, things are settling. And the foundation in agriculture is the problem today. If we're trying to farm up here, a lot of people, most people, with all the technology, and we forgot about the foundation down here. That's important. And so we keep slipping and wondering why. I mean, how many guys do you talk to across southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, feel like they're farming and have put the resources out there to get 240, 280 bushel corn, but they can't break 200, or they're only getting 180, and they say, what's wrong here? You know, I thought this GMO I bought and I'm paying that premium for is supposed to do all this stuff for me, and I'm not getting there. You know, so we got to learn that if your crop is prematurely dying, it's because, in most cases, it lacks proper nutrition. And when a crop prematurely dies, you're going to leave quality and yield behind. And you can go across northern Iowa, I guarantee you, the middle of August to the end of August, first part of September, and this is what you're going to see, corn dying from the top and bottom at the same time. And is that normal? No, it's not normal. And, you know, here we got anthracnose, probably, and of course we know goswell. This is more normal. This is what you want to have to harvest. You want to have a green stalk with a dry, heavy test weight ear on it. And that stalk has a lot of juice, a lot of mineral, a lot of sugar, so when it turns over, you're going to cycle that energy and that organic matter and those nutrients back in the soil. And if you keep doing that over a period of time, it just gets better and better and better. We call that renewable farming, okay? Wouldn't you much better cycle and harvest nutrients out of the air to your soil and buy it and pay for it? Sure. I believe this was Doug Rowley's theory. Roots are the mouth of the plant. So we got to have good root systems. They got to be healthy. This corn right here, and the reason I took this picture is it came off of Francis Child's field. This is the first time a root pit was ever dug on his farm. And I had to talk him into it. It took me 6 months to do it. For some reason, he didn't want to do it. And then after we did it, he said, well, I'm glad we did that. But the point being that I want to point out here, look at this soil here. I mean, he didn't have exceptional soil, but what he knew how to do is turn on the biology and the minerals. And this picture was taken right about the 1st of October. Notice how healthy and green this corn is. And that corn approached, it was a corn that did around 400 bushel an acre in that area.
Jim, how deep is the pit right there? I mean, how deep are the roots?
Well, we're probably looking at about 3 feet right in here.
Okay.
Yep. This is from Millardale, South Dakota. This is one of Dennis's customers. There's a Millardale colony. We work with a lot of colonies in South Dakota. These soils are very difficult, right, Dennis, to work with out there?
Yep.
And, you know, they kind of start behind the 8 ball compared to what we got to work with. We got, you know, 10, 20 times better soils than they have out there. But this is a program that Dennis put into effect out there where we've been working with mineralization and microbes. We manage all their manure. We were on all 10,000 acres of sunflowers, soybeans, corn, wheat that they farm. And just doing it biologically versus chemically, this had 10 gallons of a 924-3 on it. Look at the difference in root mass, in ear, stem diameter, bigger stem. This had 4 more rows of corn on it, weighed 36% more than that ear. The root was 50% heavier. And what we used out there was our natural plant food, which is a bio-augmented hog manure that we taught them how to make themselves. And they use that in all their starters. Every time they go to the field, they're polaring that. And we use our Starter Plus in it that has additional goodies in there to push the nutrients and the biology. We used our micromix and then the cattle water egg in there. And what cattle water is, it's a natural biological and chemical balancer. And it works year-round. We've seen some fantastic results. Generally out here, the first year we used it, we saw about a 20 bushel increase per acre on soils that weren't biologically balanced yet. And I don't think I got their soil. Yeah, there we are. This was amazing to me. Here we got Dennis and here's JC. And this is the farm manager, Robert. And I love Robert because Robert does what you tell him to do, and he checks everything, and he collects the data, right, Dennis?
Yes, he does.
And he's willing to share it with other people. And you got to understand, and I don't know if I put how many pictures, well, I did put all the pictures in here, but if you go out to South Dakota and you look at generally the soybean crops, they're half yellow and they're up and down and they're all over because their soils are so poor out there from the standpoint of being out of balance for the most part. And they're high. And this whole thing is just exploding out there. Ken and I went up to Montana right before Christmas. We did a meeting in Great Falls. We had 8 counties come in. Next 2 days we went out and visited 5 of them. And our phone is ringing off the wall because they're just crying for help. They know that they can do better, but nobody is there to lay and show them how to do better and give them the tools to work with. And we see a big opportunity through South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana. And there's like 400 counties in Alberta, and there's 400 counties in Manitoba and probably 200 in Saskatchewan. I could spend the rest of my life in Montana or South Dakota, North Dakota, just working with colonies. And every one of them farm 5 to 15, 20,000 acres, and they all have livestock. It's completely integrated. They control everything. And they get it. They're concerned about their health. They raise all their own food that they eat. So it's really a fun group to work with. But the thing that we talked about yesterday is simply this. So much of us in agriculture, what we do is we look at a symptom and we treat the symptom. Think about it. We're all good at symptom treaters when it comes to human health or it comes to our crop and livestock. The first thing when we try to go to a vertical integrator, if vets are involved, they don't want us to talk to the producers. They don't want to understand what we're talking about because guess what? They make a lot of money on the antibiotics and stuff that they're putting into that herd. Do you think the last thing they want to do is cut that antibiotic bill in half? So that's the problem with the vertical integrators, is getting by the nutritionists and the vets. And so we got to look at the cause of why we got the problem. Why, if you want to produce 240 bushel corn, you believe you have the soil to do it, you're only producing 180. Why is your test rate only 56, 57? Why are your animals have scours? Why are you not, why are your sows or your milk cows not cycling properly? What is the cause? Why is your manure pits foamy? Why are your pigs in 2 feet of foam? What's causing this? And then you got to figure that out, and then you got to find a solution and develop a plan of action. And then we want to kind of know, okay, what are the expected results? What I tell my sales group is simply this. What do farmers want from you? They want to know, number one, that they can trust you. Number two, they want to know that you know what you're talking about. They want you to tell them what they should be doing and what's the best shot for them to do to meet their objectives. And then they want a plan of action, and then they want to know that you're going to appreciate the business and follow up with it. And so that's what we put together in the Crop Advantage Plus program, is that agenda of addressing the cause of why you have issues on your farm. And it's all about balance, so we developed a full circle system. And if you have animals, you're going to work in this arena too. If you don't, then you're going to start right here. But the whole idea is about minerals and microbes. It's about being probiotic at every point in the food chain to produce the quality of food that we need to generate the profits and the health that we need. So when we look at a livestock operation, we look at it holistically. You know, I started the business in 1979 when I left Eli Lilly Research Laboratories. Left a very good paying job, moved back to Minnesota. I was in Omaha. And I spent the first 15 years of my career, what we did is really work for corporate America. We went out as consultants and we did educational marketing, we did contractual research, we wrote tech manuals for them. And we trained their staff of how to go out and identify weeds and stage crops and how to position their products. And after 15 years, I threw up my hands and I said, I'm tired of this. Because every one of these companies had something to sell the farmer. But not one of them could go and tell them how to put it all together. And think about it. We have somebody come and drive in our yard, and he sells us fertilizer, and then the guy sells us feed, and then the guy sells us seed, and then he sells us fertilizer, and then another guy has something else for us to buy, and then they drive off. And you got to figure out how to make it all work. And that's why we started the manure treatment service, is simply we'd go on a farm and the guy had a problem, so we'd say, okay, here's what you need to use. And go back a month later, sometimes it's still sitting there. It doesn't work real good if you don't put it in the pit. Or this is typically what happened. So if you got a pit that's got a lot of stuff on the bottom, a lot of sludge. So he starts treating according to what we tell him to do and thinks, boy, the odor goes down, the flies go down, and man, you know, I'm feeling pretty good. This is working this time, because last time I spent the money, it didn't work. And then he comes in the barn about a month or 3 months down the road, and all of a sudden, it's a terrible odor, and the flies are coming back, and he says, boy, that's not working. I wasted my money. What just happened? Is it working or isn't it working?
It's working. It's turning over.
That's right. You see, if you don't understand the bioapplication of manure, what's happening is, as the microbes move down through that manure, they're reaching down in there and creating air pockets and that stuff on the bottom, and that's flipping to the top, because we got to get it up where there's oxygen for them to digest it. So you got to clean that whole bottom off, and once you do that, as long as you keep treating, you're going to be fine. I'm working with a dairy down in Atlantic, Iowa, 3,400 cows, 60 million gallons of manure. And they bring in the flushback water out of the third stage. And it was all plugged up. I mean, I got pictures over here. I mean, it was literally, they had 4 to 5 feet on the top in the first stage and about 8 feet on the bottom. And the other 2 stages were plugged too, and he wanted to irrigate. And the difference between drag line and tremendous agitation, I mean, severe agitation to get all this so he could pump it through the drag line. It was costing another $500,000 a year versus putting it through his irrigator. And so I said to Kelly, okay, Kelly, we can do it. Give me 2 years. I'll liquefy it. But I'm telling you, I'm going to come down here in the middle of summer, and you're going to meet me at the door, and you're not going to be happy with me in your flushback water. Because when I start lifting all that stuff off the bottom, that you're going to pump back through the building that has a real rank odor with it, you're not going to be happy and your employees are not going to be happy. But you got to go through withdrawal to get us where you want to go. And sure enough, I went down in the summer, and you know, he said, well, Jim, I know you told me this, but boy, it's bad. And I said, give us a month, and we'll clean it over. And it did, and now he's happy. He signed a contract for another year, and we got all 3 stages cleaned up completely now. And we did it in less than 2 years, so he's happy. So if the same thing is true of the crop side. It's all about being probiotic at every point, and it's about minerals and microbes. And if the soil is out of balance, the whole system's out of balance. So everything in life goes back to the soil, because life is about health. It's about nutrition. And you can't do it without the microbes, because they're the ones that build and tear things down and cycle everything. And so this is a picture of a field in South Dakota. This is quite common out there. So if I've got this, then I'm paying taxes on and running over every year and probably fertilizing, getting nothing out of it. It's not a good deal. Ken and I can turn that soil around, but the problem is, if you got this here, this is operating about 50%. That's all you're getting. So I tell the colonies, your future is here. And, oh yeah, but it's going to cost us money, isn't it? How much are you spending now? What are you getting in return now? And it doesn't have to cost you more money. It may need to spend a little bit differently. So this is in your packet. What minerals and microbes do for you is improve drainage and aeration, improve the activity of the microbes, build soil organic matter. This is important because this is the foundation of your soil. This is what holds moisture. Carbon holds 4 to 5 times its weight in moisture. The microbes live on it, it holds nutrients, but it also detoxifies. Right, Lynn? What do humates do? One of the key functions of humates is they detoxify, don't they? Because they pull things out, because they have a lot of negative and positive charges. And so it recycles nutrients. Mineral balance and availability is improved. Your crop residue digestion turns like it should. Water utilization efficiency goes up. Optimize the plant genetic potential. Improve feed and food quality. And this is what it reduces, just the opposite. So, is this what you want to do, or is this what you want to do in your farm? And how does aeration play into this? Can anybody, for $5, can anybody explain what aeration does? Why do I want my soils to breathe? Give me 2 reasons.
Oxygen.
Oxygen, okay. So what does oxygen do for me?
Feed the bacteria.
Okay, they need oxygen to live, don't they? What else did I already tell you of the soil? I mentioned it a couple times. What else does oxygen do in your soil? It prevents the what?
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic, which prevents, if it goes anaerobic, what do you get? Huh? Formaldehyde, you get disease, pathogens with it, right? Because they can't live in oxygen. But what is the one thing that air, if your soils are breathing, brings into the soil that's very important for you? Nitrogen. Who said it? Okay, Ken, that's worth $5, Ken. And Ken, how much of the atmosphere is nitrogen? 78%. And Ken, as a grower, can you utilize that nitrogen in the air?
Yes, the plant is, everything perfect in the plant, it should take about 70 to 80% of nitrogen needs right out of the air.
Okay, and we get that through nodulation, which is a symbiotic relationship with the plant, where the rhizobium live off the food coming out of the root, but the root sends 25% of the sugars to feed the microflora and the nodules, right? Most people don't know that, 25%. And then they fix the atmospheric nitrogen. But is there also 3 living organisms in the soil?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell me what one of those are? Ken, what is one of the organisms in the soil?
For nitrogen?
Yeah.
You have azoosmosis, you have azotobacter, you have azobacter, you have nitrobacter.
We got some nitrobacter right here. We put it right on the seed.
Yeah, lots of good little guys that really break up the nitrogen.
And how much do we pay for that nitrogen then?
Well, the average is free last time I checked.
Okay. So, you know.
We'll fix that.
Yeah.
Somebody will tax it.
Yeah. Let's not get into the politics, okay? Get me started on that. Because I know we got a liberal two in the room, right? All right. Now, this is a really important slide to understand too. And this kind of summarizes really what the job is all about. Every year we raise a crop, so we build, right? So we're taking the minerals out of the soil and out of the air, and we're building plant mass. And then every year we want to tear that back down again, right? So where do the minerals come from? From the air and from the soil, okay? But notice this. The base of our soil is biology, and that determines your physical and chemical. So what comes first, the nutrient or the biology? You could argue that point. Elaine Ingham had a talk on that at Acres about 8 years ago that I attended, and talking about what comes first, the biology or the nutrition, and they work hand in hand. The fact is you can't have proper nutrition without the biology, and the reason is, Kent, is because what does the biology do to get the nutrition ready for the plant?
It changes it. It converts it from an inorganic, insoluble, non-usable form into a plant-available form.
Right. And so they go hand in hand. And it's the biology that produces the enzymes that put things together like starch and proteins and everything that we build in a plant. And Ken has a talk on this. It'll blow your mind what a plant produces. It's far beyond your imagination. I'm marvel. I don't even begin to understand it, but all the things a plant can produce that we don't even comprehend that's being done. And so the microbes produce the enzymes that help do that. And of course, the key to make the enzyme work is the trace elements. And they're important for tearing things down. But this is a foundation to the whole program. So that's why we say it's really, and the better you do this as a farmer every year, like Marlo, you know, you've been at this quite a few years. As your soil's got better and better each year following that strategy, what are you seeing in your field now? Ken and I were out there this fall. We couldn't believe the amount of biological activity you got going on. Is your corn stalks breaking down properly?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, these are the things that do work. Yep.
But they break down properly because basically GMO is non-existent, okay? Because there is a difference between how the plant breaks down non-GMO versus GMO. And you can break it down. There's no doubt about it. The GMO stock. To make that happen.
Okay, here's a little basic philosophy in life. All life is driven on energy. Nutrition is about energy. All right, so when you have the nutrients available in the right balance, you create energy for growth. Energy is the amount of ordering which exists at any given point in time and space. This defines and fits agriculture very well, for in the discussion of plant health, weeds, and pest infestation and disease presence, plant health correlates to order, whereas weeds, diseases, insects, pests correlates to soil and plant disorder. So if you have weeds, insect, disease problems, Goswell, Sundance syndrome, you got disorder, you lack energy. So when you're high energy, you're going to be healthier. You're not going to have illness. So biological energy balance is during the growing season, you should be building the energy. And the only way you can do that is in a biological sense. It's that biology that does that. Because you want to fill the grain out here, you got to have the energy to do that. So what happens is when you increase the energy, your crop does better and your pest problems tend to reduce or go away. This is typically the way we farm in the Midwest. We come out here and we put on our DAP and our MAP and our anhydrous in the fall, and then we want to fill the ear corn out here in August or our beans. Look at our energy. This is what you need to be, this is what you prefer, this is what you've got to learn how to do. That's what creates high yields and quality. Minerals and microbes do that for you. This is a summary of a lot of understanding over the years. But so what do we do if we come to you and we want to improve your soil? The first thing we're going to say is we got to build and maintain your bioactive carbon in the soil. That's your foundation. That's the stern of the ship. That's what holds the moisture, the nutrients, takes out the toxicity, food for the microbes. This is the most important, number 2, but I don't go with that first because if I don't have that, I probably can't maintain that. Then that will reduce they will reduce the toxins that are in the system and allow you to reach nutrient balance, density, and availability. That's how it works. If you got toxicity in the system, you can't truly reach it. Back to the manure example that we gave you. So if you got glyphosate in your soil or salts in your soil, they're a block to you raising 280, 300 bushel corn. Until you get those under control, you can't break through that yield barrier. And if you do that, soil health improves in the pest control area. All these things. You'll have higher brick plants. So if you want to increase water efficiency, it really is dependent on mineral balance and availability and microbial health and diversity. And if you work in improving these two, your water efficiency will go way up. And of course, we know that GMOs are negative to water efficiency. Isn't that a pretty little critter there? That's calcium phosphate. Now, how does your plant, can your plant get access to that calcium phosphate there? No. That's insoluble. It's in your soil and it's locked up your calcium and your phosphorus. It's not available. And the reason is because phosphorus has 3 negative charges, calcium is 2 positive. The minute you put that in the soil, your phosphorus, bam! That's what we form right there. Richard.
Does it show up on your soil test?
Ken, comment to that.
If the lab extract will break it, it will show up on a soil test, but your plant's not going to be able to pull that bond apart.
And see, you'll see this when we get to the soil mineral balancer. Ken, tell them how the soil mineral balancer deals with this.
Well, the soil mineral balancer is designed to give us a look at the high and the low mineral ratios in the soil. What's in soluble plant available form, and the minerals in relation to their ratio to each other has a huge impact on what the plant can or cannot get.
So, one of the technologies that we're going to be talking about here this morning is biorelease, conventionally, and Soluplex on the organic side. It has been designed, there's 3 factors that are involved with this technology. One is a biosurfactant that will go in and separate the calcium and phosphorus. And then we have 2 components that will basically neutralize each one of the positive calcium ion and the negative phosphorus ion and keep them available over a 90 to 120 day period for the plant to take up. So when you put it in with your starter or your side dress, it has the ability then to prevent tie-up of what you put out there, so you can reduce the amount you're putting on because you're going to have more available. But it will also unlock what's in your soil. Yes?
And doesn't raw manure also have that same phosphorus particle, which your plant can't use it until it gets broke down?
I went out, I got a bucket of this up. I went out to, for Standard Nutrition, Watertown, South Dakota. They got 2 big sow units out there about 3 miles apart. And the problem is they lost their lagoon capacity. And they couldn't make it from fall to spring, so they said, Jim, can you come and clean it up? I said, well, yeah, I can do that. And so I went out there and I had that baby cooking. I was so proud of myself all summer long. I said, man, I'm going to win this one. And it was pink and oh, it was really doing good until they pumped it. And I'm not kidding you. All the way around that big lagoon, about that deep, was calcium phosphate lining that whole thing. And they didn't agitate. They haven't agitated for years. And of course, the microbes will do it, but when you got that much sediment like that there, calcium phosphate, I mean, you're not going to do it overnight. And I said, the only way you're going to do that is dig that out, or we got to do really good agitation and pump it into the field. And, well, I learned my lesson there. And so I said to him, all that ran through your sows into the, think about all the material that ran through the sows, out in, went right through the feed. What a waste. And so, yeah. Okay. For $5, and you guys that I've trained now, you be quiet. We're going to go with the new guys here and gals. Who for $5 can tell me the 4 elements that make up 97.5% of the weight of the plant?
Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen.
Okay, very good. Can you say that louder?
Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen.
Okay, very good. And most people don't realize that 45% of the weight of the plant is made up of oxygen. So another reason why oxygen is important, 45% carbon, 45% hydrogen 6, and nitrogen 1.5. And Ken and I talked about the fact that we get most of that out of the air. And then these others, if you add these up, you know, well here, potassium is 1%, calcium is 0.5%, mag is 0.2, and phosphorus is 0.2, and sulfur is 0.1. Weight of a plant above and below ground. And this will add up to about 99.5%. It's all these trace elements, though, that are the keys that turn on the combine, turn on the enzyme. Moly, Ken's going to talk about moly, is only 0.0001%. But I can tell you what, if your moly isn't there, what do we lose in nitrogen efficiency, Ken?
Huge, 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 huge.
And for less than $2 an acre, probably $1 an acre, you can correct it by putting it into your starters or your side dress, or more with your nitrogen, I think Ken will talk about. So guys, it's not about the amount you're putting out there, it's about the availability. So what we want to do, the goal is to reduce our commercial fertilizer bill, cut it in half, easy, on nitrogen too, by improving availability in the valleys. On the manure sides, to get it pre-digested. So again, we're tying that nutrient into the microbe, we're preventing it from gassing off. We're reducing the lag phase in the field. We're retaining more of the nutrient, and we're dropping salt levels. So the strategy here then, what we want to do is provide knowledge and strategy and technology which will allow you to simultaneously improve yield, quality, and profitability. So what we're looking to doing is really the renewable farming system where less can be better. So we put together, with the help of a lot of people over the years, and Ken has really added to this, the Crop Advantage Plus program. And we'd like to have you take the Crop Advantage Plus challenge. And our challenge is, we believe we can help you get another 20 to 50 bushel of corn the first year, or 8 to 15 bushel of soybeans the first year in your operation. And we're talking about not spending more money, but maybe spending it a little bit differently. And the components that are involved in this is a complete soil analysis that you have done by a lab, which means you get a CEC test with all the trace elements included, as far as the zinc and the mag and the iron, etc. And then we have the color coder that we use and have been using. And then we have the soil mineral balancer that has been authored by Ken, as well as the crop nutrient calculator that he'll be talking about here. And then we have the Crop Advantage Plus program planter that we would use on your farming operation. And so the whole idea is, can we take and add value? Can we improve test weight on your wheat, soybeans, and corn to add value? And you know, really, when you look at it, and I'm going to ask Dave to make some comments here in a minute, if you just increase a ½ pound test weight per acre on your corn, it will pay for this program. Not a lot of money. You can have all this at your fingertips. And what I learned with Ken in my sales group, this is great. They work 24/7, non-stop. All right? They'll be at your fingertips. Right, Ken? 24/7.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to give you a quick overview, and Ken is going to, I'm the pre-guy for Ken, you know. So, what Ken has done is he's taken all of the Albrecht stuff out of Missouri. He spent 40 years of his life building this database on plant nutrition, when plants need it, when they take it up, what is the ideal ratios to get out from a yield, and he's put it into a spreadsheet. So So this is an example of corn at 250 bushel an acre. The only way you're going to get that yield is to meet these curves that are laid out here. And again, that's in your handout, I believe. And this is rather shocking to me when Ken showed me that in regard to, you know, when we're going through the different reproductive stages and when it needs the nutrients. And I'm going to let Ken fill you in on that. But all we need is a complete soil analysis. And then we get the data electronically in, and Corey or Peter, Dave, what they'll do, Dennis, is they'll take and run that right into our color coder. And this gives you where you should be as far as target soil test levels. And then yellow, green means you're okay, yellow means you're getting close to being out of balance, and red means you are out of balance. So you can put a whole farm up there if you pull 20 samples, and you can look at the farm and see generally where the problems are. Now, in working with you, we'll do this for everybody. There won't be a fee involved in doing this portion of it. We've been doing that. But if you want to go further into this from this point on, then there's going to be a fee involved. And what Ken is going to show you is what we call the soil mineral balancer. And we're going to pass out and run through some scenarios. At the end, if anybody brought your soil test with you, we'll actually throw it up there and run it, and you'll see. But with this tool here, we can show you, because a soil test is really, in a lot of ways, misleading, because you look at it and say, oh, I'm okay. But in reality, this is 0. And what you want to have ideally is no color showing on that right there, because that means you're at balance. So if you're below, that means you're deficient. If you're above, that means you're in excess. And it's the excess and the deficient that get you in trouble. And right here, for example, we got sodium and magnesium, and they're really high, so they're throwing these out of whack. They're tying these up. These are negative, these are positive. So I know if I would maybe come in with elemental sulfur, I think Ken would probably suggest, and to kind of knock these back down, then these are going to come up. I believe that's what Ken is going to tell us. And then we can go into the next thing would be the crop nutrient calculator. Boy, I love this little thing. And this gives you then, up here you can plug in whatever bushels you want. You want to produce 200, 250, 240, 280, 300, 350. You plug the data in off your soil test, and it runs these curves for you. Exactly. This is the growth cycle, weekly nutrient need per bushel, corn weekly nutrient percent needed per bushel of yield. All right? And what we're going to do is pass these out to you here when Ken comes on. And you'll actually be able to see these firsthand. And then, what it does, it runs these graphs on nitrogen, potassium, here, and phosphorus, potassium. The green is what you've got available according to your soil test. The red is what you've got to make up if you want to raise 200 bushel corn under this scenario. All right? There's no way getting around it. So how are you going to do that? So now we need to know what are your yield goals. We need to know how you farm. What's your history? How do you use your broadcast fertilizer? Do you use liquid? Do you use dry? Do you have starter? Do you side dress? Do you foliar? Do you have a high clearance sprayer? Because that's what's going to determine how we build a program for you. Okay? And then what we got to do then is our sales group and Ken and I, we've got to then figure out how we satisfy that. And we know that if we do that, you're going to get the yields. And of course, behind the scene, we're working on the sulfur, the moly, the trace elements, because they got to be there. Okay? So in the system, what we're really after to do is design to improve quality in quantity, improve return on investment, increase brick levels, improve health of the soil ecology, improve the sustainable energy levels in soil, lower input costs, reduce dependency on pest control agents, reduce plant nutrient input costs, enhance natural self-sustaining system, create a healthier working environment, pass on a renewable farming strategy to the next generation. I have that for the colonies because they like that. And this will be accomplished by balancing soil nutrients, reducing toxicity, building soil microbial diversity, and increasing soil carbon and oxygen levels in the soil. That's how we're going to do that. Step to implement. You need to sign the agreement. We need to have soil tests done, CEC, complete analysis. Then we will run the soil mineral balancer. We want to know what your yield goals are, your farming practices, equipment available. Then we'll run the calculators. We'll develop a crop plan of what, when, and how. Evaluate in season, at harvest, and then summary of results. Every year we'll come back and we'll do a summary. What did we gain? And then the opportunity is to look at this from year to year. And as you run the calculator from year to year, or the soil balancer, you're going to be able to see how you're improving. And this is a visual picture. Now, since I left Michigan State University, my whole career has been focused on getting to this point. And it's been a very interesting road. And a requirement of me to learn a lot of things, but to change a lot of my viewpoints to get here. So when we look at it, what we're going to do on your farm for part of the feed is now the analysis of the tissue and the soil and the feed of grain, you're going to pay for those analysis. But what we're going to do then is take these and we're going to show you what it means. In other words, why do we want to do a tissue analysis, Ken?
You want to see the transfer of what the plant is actually able to take from the soil or from the air. You want to see that nutrient content so you can analyze the functional components in the plant.
So what's really getting in the plant? And then we want to do an infill brick, and every one of our people, and by the way, every one of you should have one of these right here. This is 75 bucks. It's a night out of town, and this one, I can't remember exactly what this one runs.
2.5.
2 and what?
250.
250 bucks. This is a digital one. Ken likes this one. And what this will do, when you squeeze juice on this from a plant, alfalfa, soybeans, whatever crop, it'll give you a reading. And it's called brick. And brick is an indication. The higher the number, the more mineral, colloidal mineral, energy, the longer, the better the sugar chain, the protein. It's really measuring the reflection of light as it relates to solid in the sap, is what it's doing. And they developed this in the wine industry back in the 1700s to determine quality of grapes to make different types of wines. This tool right here is your stethoscope as a doctor hanging around your neck here, because if your crop is not 12 or higher, you're not there. And your goal is to get everything in your farm to read consistently 12 or higher. And if you're feeding forages, grasses and legumes, you want it 16 to 18 minimum. And this doesn't lie. So if your microbes and minerals aren't working on your farm, it's going to tell you that. Now, to my amazement, Ken told me that he's got his grapes up to 24 brick.
25.
25 brick. That's unbelievable. It's so sweet you can hardly drink it, right?
Yeah, pretty sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell them what a high Brix level does to bugs if the bugs eat it.
Okay, if you have a brick level of 12 or higher, it's relative. You know, there's a lot of other things that go with it, but insects have the ability to sense the energy of a crop when they fly over it. That nature's given them that ability. And that's why they got little antennas. And Ken, can you explain that?
Yeah. What happens is plants, because of their mineral makeup, when you break a mineral down, what you have is atoms and electrons. And each one of these minerals, because you have different electrons and different valences, create a frequency. It's no different than music. When we hear music, it's simply a frequency wave. And plants emit this frequency. We don't hear it, but insects with antennas do. Works exactly the same principle as a radio station and a car radio. You drive down the road, you scan up and down the dial. And each one of these radio stations work on a different frequency. Well, the minerals do the same thing. And so the plants emit this pattern or frequency complex, and the insects interpret it. And what they're looking for, insects' role in nature is that of basically a culler or a cleaner. If they're going to take the plants that have out of balance, unorganized frequencies due to mineral deficiencies, they're going to take them out. They'll kill them. That's their job, because that plant, in the role of nature, in the big picture, isn't going to sustain that higher life form because of the deficiencies of nutrients in it. So the job of the insect is simply to remove that plant from the food chain so it's not consumed.
Marlo.
Just remember if you have a lot of insects, bugs, bad worms, whatever you want, really what they are, they're the Lord's garbage collectors. That's what that amounts to. The other thing is most of us like to eat. If you've never had a 20 brick strawberry, or 18 to 24 brick squash, whatever it is that you like, get a hold of one and then you'll see what real food is in one.
Yeah, it's incredible. But the other part of what Marlo was getting to is when you raise the sugars high enough, the pathogenic organisms, whether it's an insect or whether it's a soil disease, or they're designed to digest incomplete nutrient compounds. And so the sugars, when we get the sugars and the minerals up to a certain level...
And you can't have one without the other, right?
No, the plant won't do this. Nature doesn't have high sugars and low minerals. They go together. They form in parallel bands. And so as you improve the nutrient content, it becomes toxic to the bugs, to the insects. And that's why they'll simply, if you guys grow gardens, you'll go out there one day and you'll have squash beetles on one plant and not the other one. Well, how come? Well, they can tell that this plant is nutrient deficient. They'll stay there till they kill it. They won't bother the other plants, because if they try to go against their rules of nature, the other plant will actually kill them. The higher nutrient content is toxic. They can't metabolize the sugar. It destroys their digestive system.
And I've been in a potato field, but the potato field is going out of the field because it's a healthy crop and they're defecating behind it. I mean, they're running out of the field. Doug, you've learned over the last 8 years as you've been in the program and you bioaugmented manure. Are you spraying your fields for aphids?
No, Chad and I have taken away the welcoming mat for insects and pressures, aphids, you name it. The neighbors are out there spraying and they're wondering why the heck we're not doing anything. We keep walking our fields, but there's no pressure there, so why go after something that doesn't exist? And it's made a lot easier for us.
You can get these to our company. We got a display in there, and we got a few of these, I think, here. I don't know if we got any, but we can order these for you, or we can tell you where you can get them. But every one of you should have a retractometer, period.
Before we leave this subject, think about how much money you spent on insecticides last year. Put that number in your head. Because if you get to this level, you don't have to spend that money. Just think about how much money you spent.
Okay, so these are the analysis: tissue test, brick test, plant sap pH. That tells you something. We want to have an annual soil analysis. I'm not a big component of grit sampling, okay? All I want to see is a good composite sample of the field. If you got soil variation, you may pull by soil. But if you're not going to farm according to grit samples, why are you pulling? You know, I've learned over the years, if you know kind of where your soils are, and soil analysis is relative anyway. And you want to do two things if you can. Pull the same time of year, send it to the same lab. If you change the time of year, you change the lab, it's hard to correlate the data. So make sure you do that. And then what we want to do is track from year to year how your soil tests are changing, how your crop nutrient, soil mineral balancer and crop nutrient calculator are changing. And then we also want to do a grain and forage analysis, especially if you got livestock, to see what's in the grain. And then we want to be in the field with you during the summer. The best fertilizer is a footprint in the field, okay? So we want to go out in the field with a shovel. This is what our people are trained to do, and you're going to do some digging. Maybe you'll do a root pit, and you're going to look at root observations and look at soil health and biology. And we want to do an annual comparison, so that's what's part of the program. And then the way we do this is we will then sit down with you, and we have what we call a ProfitPro program plan. And we'll look at the fall crop residue, cover crops, fall or early spring plant nutrient program. We may put you on a soft rock phosphate, potassium sulfate, ammonium sulfate program, for example. And then we want to talk about seed is a drug delivery mechanism of technology. You're going to plant anyway. Why not target right around that seed with effective seed treatments or coatings or inoculants? And then starter and micronutrients. We're going to put our biostimulants in there, like our cattle water or our bio-release as an example. And then do you side dress? Do you foliar? And then we got a product called Volker that Kim can comment on that you put on the last 30 days of life of a crop, and it increases photosynthesis, and you just bulk the crop up. And we see very good yield responses from that. And then, of course, nitrogen management. Ken will talk about that. Are you Roundup, non-Roundup, and then other management things that we need to do. So that's kind of what we would do with you and come up with a cost, obviously, on doing that. But it gives you a plan. Then we're not out wandering around. We got a different plan. We know where we're headed. We got a yield goal. We're starting to visualize what things should look like in our crop and in our soil. And then we're going to monitor that. Now the really neat thing about it is Ken can be in Logan, Utah, or Peter can be here, and whoever with you. And we can go on the internet, WebEx. And there's other, but we're using WebEx right now. For example, Marlo. We had Marlo on here a couple weeks ago. And so we're showing them how to work. So Marlo was at home, and Ken was in Logan, Utah, and I was here. So we're hooked into WebEx. So we can plug in the soil analysis, and we can see all of it right live on the screen. We can see each other. If we have the camera, we can visually see each other, and we can run you through the total program and lay out a plan for you. You don't have to leave the comfort of your office or your home. So we have those tools. We can put on, Joe, how many people can we have on WebEx?
25.
25 right now, and I'm sure we can build it for more. We plan on doing a lot of programs this way, educational programs. And so people that sign into this program, what Ken and I plan on doing is keep bringing you information. The thing that I deal with all the time is I've got a library in this building, and it's loaded with knowledge. You got to remember, I've been at this thing for, Ken and I, for a good, well, hate to see it, but probably approaching 35, 40 years. And we got so much good stuff. But how do you get it out? How do you get people wanting to learn and to pay attention? And so we're looking at this as a good way to do that. So what it involves in the program, again, is the soil mineral balance of the crop nutrient calculator, and then writing the plan. So where is Dave now? Is Dave around here?
Just disappeared.
Okay, he disappeared just when I needed him, didn't he? Okay. You go get him. Now, what I'm going to pass around now is a copy of the soil mineral balancer. So let's see, JC, do you want to pass this out on both sides? This is the crop AdvantagePlus program. And let's see, Peter, I need your help. And I need Dennis over here. And, okay. And Dennis is going to pass this out, and then I need, I need Corey.
I'm taxed with bringing the sales of the company up.
Yeah.
Lucky me. You got one of those $5 bills on you?
Yes, I do.
I won't.
Okay. That was easy.
For $5, who can tell me why Rome wasn't built in one day? Anybody?
It takes longer than a day to build a foundation.
Nope. Anybody else want to try it? No. The reason Rome wasn't built in one day is because I wasn't the foreman of that crew. Here, Jim, what we got? You can have your final.
We could probably find something to give it away. Okay.
Basically, I'm coming on board to try and get the sales of the company.
And for a good man, he showed up. It's the company is ready to explode. We got a lot of really good things coming together. We just need feet on the ground, and it's really hard to find quality people to do it because we're not the traditional ag company, as you can probably tell. I also passed around our company, what I call technical product guide. You need to read the front cover there, but it's got all the different products in there. And I'm not going to bore you with going through all this stuff today. What we want to spend our time in a different way, just to let you know that we have some of the best products on the market for conventional and organic. When it comes to seed treating, biologicals, plant nutrition, we fit most all areas. If you're buying your nutrient from somebody else, that's fine. We'll work with those products and try to guide you as best we can. This was a study that we did on Marlo Longan's farm last year with cattle water ag, and Marlo does a lot of different testing every year, and I give him product for I think 40, 60 acres. Just said put it in with your starter. He's already in a biological program on this field for at least 5 years, and this is what Matt and Marlo brought back to me. They picked up, as you can see here, a nice yield response of 18.63 bushel per acre, $7 corn. That was about a 9-to-1 payback on their investment. Besides, they're improving it for next year. You're going to see carryover effect from that. And one of the things that cattle water does, it balances soils chemically and biologically, and it really tears salt apart, as well as glyphosate. Over here you can see this was in July out in the western states. They had a lot of salt. They were going to raise alfalfa, so we sprayed it. Here it is, August, and when we got to October, we're already growing alfalfa there in a very high salt environment. So that's one of the reasons why I really attached to this technology for the use with the manure digestion and for the crop side. In our toolbox, as you can see in our catalog, we've got a lot of tools. But I would say the foundational tools that I think everybody needs to consider putting in your program, besides the traditional seed treatments, biostimulants, seed treatments and plant nutrient, are the cattle water, the bio-release, and the bio-mineral 75 that we're going to show you here in a minute. Now, how you distinguish between these products is simply this. Think of the cattle water A as a product that works year-round to help chemically and biologically balance your soil and get rid of the toxins. Think of bio-release as a product you're going to use in season with your starter or side dress to help unlock or keep your nutrients from being locked up, and it also stimulates biology. So they do overlap a little bit, but they really complement each other. And so what I would use probably is a half a gallon of this in with my starter or side dress, or I'd split it if I'm going to do both. And then I would use this either in the fall with my residue program, or use it in with my manure application, or you can put it in with your starter, or you can put it on free. With cattle water, the longer it's out there, the more water you get on it, the better activity you get in that given year, and it will carry from year to year. You'll find those areas that are holding water, as you do this, will hold less water, you'll get better drainage. Bio-mineral 75 is a program that Ken and Salam put together, and I'm really excited about it. It's a product that we can make here, or you can make right on farm. We're going to show you in a minute how to do it. It's got 75 minerals in it, and it's got biology. And when you spray it on a crop, it lights up. All right? So the way you're going to access that is, we're going to make it here. Now we'll show you a little bit how we're going to do it. We can make it here, or we can bring the apparatus on farm to brew it, if we got enough acres. Or we're going to show you how to do it yourself. You can build your own brewers. Most of the colonies will build their own. So we'll show you this here in a minute. So the question to you is, if you're not satisfied with your return or ROI and your crop animals manure, what are you going to do about it? Only you are the ones that are really in control. So start with the end in mind, and remember, it's all about balance. It's as simple as that. It's about minerals and microbes. So what we're going to do now is take a break. And
the yellow, which is my core corn, is a 200. Read the key. Now the only difference there is cattle water, but you have to understand that there is already some biology in the soil. So if you want to see that kind of difference, There's other things that go with it. It's all the same hybrid. And I will just mention that it is Pioneer.
What number of Pioneers?
52, B52, non-GMO. Now, I will, huh?
How many weights is your
103.
Okay.
But if you use a good product like this here, I was harvesting 19 to 21% corn on green stalks. That particular piece test weight is about 62.5. I did not have any corn under 59.5. But you can harvest good corn on green stalks. Now, the other thing is in here in the cattle water study, Jim has told you that it is a stimulant. And that is true. But you have to have something there to stimulate, okay? So just don't throw that in and think that it's a cure-all. Buy some biology from it. So now the cattle water has a chance to work with something. Any other questions? I guess I'll kind of be around here.
Okay, thank you.